What up, TZK Potters? Welcome back to the program. I'm your host, Sky Guasco. This is another episode of the Candlestick Kids Fantasy Football Podcast. This is episode 454. I'm joined this evening by my man, Jordan Della Valle. You can find us both on Twitter at Sky Guasco and at J Della Valle. E, not a Y, the number 7. J Della Valle 7 on Twitter as well. And of course, make sure to follow TCK and the Fantasy Focused platforms on all streaming. Subscribe to the Fantasy Focus YouTube channel and the Candlestick Kids Fantasy Football Podcast, brought to you by Believe Podcast Network on all podcast formats. We're streaming live once again on Facebook, YouTube, Periscope, and Twitch through Fantasy Focus. So make sure you give us a like, follow, and subscribe to all those channels. Right now, we're going to be breaking down the Week 2 game recaps, and then we'll look ahead quickly to Week 3 and what to watch for here. So I'm going to break down the game recaps, and then Jordan's going to bring you all something to look forward to and keep an eye on come Week 3. Jordan, how you feeling, man? I know you were en route this weekend, but busy weekend here. Your team and my team squared off, the Eagles and the Niners. Really a great game. Both sides, Niners get the edge there, but a nice matchup either way. What was one takeaway across the NFL this weekend for you?
Yeah, I mean, I was, as you mentioned, en route, and so watching on an airplane and kind of laggy stream there. So had to watch all the games and recap. The Niners-Eagles game was obviously one I was frustrated watching. But for me, one of the key takeaways is starting to be how for fantasy wide receivers are I think, starting to truly outpace a lot of running backs. The running backs are starting to get to a place in the NFL where, for fantasy, if you score a touchdown, you're going to be, one of those top running backs of the week. Obviously, wide receivers, you don't need that touchdown dependency. Look at Devontae Adams and other guys who can just put up, based on, especially in PPR scoring formats, based on receptions and yardage total, can still have a top wide receiver week without having that touchdown dependency. You look at guys as a running back, guys like James White are starting to pop up as fantasy relevant running backs because they're scoring on a weekly basis. They're involved in the passing game. Obviously Derrick Henry exploded in the second half, but you were, as the Derrick Henry manager through that first half of that game, extremely frustrated with what you've gotten as someone who's supposedly a top 5 back. You look at Saquon Barkley, obviously coming back off the ACL tear as well, so a little bit different. But you have these top backs who are getting pushed down the fantasy finish on a week-to-week basis, whether or not they score a touchdown.
Yeah, that's a good point and observation there as well. And a guy like James White wasn't even – I mean, he was drafted, if drafted, very, very late. So it's interesting with him, though, because, I mean, you might even be able to pick him up off of waivers at this point, and he's not quite the 2018 version of himself when he finished PPR running back 7, but he's going to give you that nice floor and a ceiling. And, his teammate is playing really well as well, Mac Jones, and something that I've been bringing back is a lot of these rookies, man, are starting to really perform off the bat. It always takes everybody about a week or two, but the rookies are really stepping up. And I remember just a couple of years ago, you had like a 2-year rule with running backs unless they were Saquon Barkley and Zeke Elliott, right? You had like a 3-year rule with wide receivers. Tight ends are like 4 years unless you're Gronkowski, right? That's just not the case anymore. So I want to ask you today for our hot topic brought to you by Bomb Banana Hot Sauce. The hot topic question today, Jordan, is simply which rookie of any position, any team, which rookie has impressed you the most? Who's been the biggest performer either for NFL purposes or for fantasy football, in your opinion? Any position, which rookie has been the best performer so far?
Yeah, I mean, the two names that pop to my mind right off the top is Ja'Marr Chase and Rondale Moore. So the reason why Ja'Marr Chase pops up there is obviously drafted high with a high draft capital for the Bengals, comes into camp, worries about drops, performance in preseason, and obviously as a highly drafted rookie wide receiver, started to set in the worry of, are we drafting him too high? Are we too high on Ja'Marr Chase? Comes out first 2 games, has done pretty well, has totaled, 155 yards, 2 touchdowns. But when we look at Rondale Moore's stat line, pretty similar, obviously, with the breakout week last week and the 2 touchdowns. But when you break it down and look at the snap percentage that these 2 guys are playing, they've put up similar stat lines, but Ja'Marr Chase is playing in 93% of offensive snaps for the Bengals. Rondale Moore is doing it on 29% in week 1 and 46% in week 2, his breakout week. So he's still not even playing in a majority of the offensive plays for the Cardinals. Obviously a great offense there, and Kyler Murray's on an outrageous pace, especially for fantasy. But I think with the caveat that Rondale Moore's played in less than half of the offensive snaps for the Arizona Cardinals, he's been my most impressive rookie so far.
That's a great call. And again, a top waiver pickup there, as you mentioned, available, but going to be hot now because we've seen it and he keeps improving coming out of the gate quickly there. Other guys, obviously, Ja'Marr Chase, Jalen Waddle. I'm worried about Tua being out. And we'll see what happens with Najee Harris. Javonte Williams just hasn't really gotten his chance. Michael Carter, not quite yet either. But a lot of these guys are just kind of waiting in the wings. And we've yet to see Kyle Pitts truly break out along with some of these other quarterbacks as well. Justin Fields is going to get his opportunity now. And Trey Lance is just a matter of time as well. So really exciting rookie class. And I'm excited to see everybody develop there. Once again, Bomb Banana Hot Sauce, banana based, not banana flavored hot sauce. Go to seekthespice.com, get 10% off of your order there. Once again, that's seekthespice.com for Bomb Banana Hot Sauce. They got the white labeled, which is the nice, bland, flavor-packed, non-spicy version. Then you have the red label, the muy muy, the extra spicy for those of you that like the extra heat. Make sure you check it out there. Once again, Bomb Banana Hot Sauce. TCK is your promo code for 10% off at seekthespice.com. All right, Jordan, let's get into it, man. We got a lot of games to recap here. We're going to skip over Thursday. We've already recapped Thursday with the Giants and the Washington football team. The Washington football team getting that last-minute second chance there for Dustin Hopkins, drills the second field goal, 30-29. Big win for the football team there. Of course, Terry McLaurin, big day, as well as Sterling Shepard there for the wide receivers. Let's move on to the Sunday action, though. We're going to get right into it here. And let's start with the Bengals and the Bears. The Bears get a big win here, 20-17. Ja'Marr Chase, another deep touchdown. Tyler Boyd, much more involved this week, 7 receptions for 73 yards. We know that Bobby's been very high on Tyler Boyd, and he staked his claim that he needed at least 70 yards or he was going to back down. 73. So we kept Bobby still in the Meg. My man T. Higgy stays solid as well. 6 catches, 60 yards, and a touchdown. Very reliable there for Tyler Boyd. All 3 Bengals receivers definitely weekly starts. Andy Dalton gets hurt running out of bounds. Justin Fields named the starter. Matt Nagy came out and said that Andy Dalton was a starter when he's healthy. It just doesn't make sense. If Justin Fields can come out, get the start, play really well, I don't see why they put Andy Dalton back in the mix there. But how do you feel about the Bears and the Bengals matchup here? The Bears squeak it out 20-17.
Yeah, I mean, pretty good game all around. I think pretty expected in terms of Bengals are coming off a high of last week, winning in overtime, coming out against a very good Bears team. But what to look for moving forward really is anytime you have a rookie quarterback coming in, whether it's like Mac Jones or Zach Wilson, who are starting from week 1, or someone like Trey Lance, hopefully eventually, or Justin Fields, where they're coming in mid-season, is what does this offense look like with a new rookie quarterback? A lot of times we see wide receivers for fantasy struggle with rookie quarterbacks. Zach Wilson again struggled this week. So, Justin Fields looked good in preseason. Stats wise, didn't look great on the stat line. You go back and you look at the actual plays. Allen Robinson dropped a touchdown from Justin Fields late in this game. And so he didn't look too bad. But, the question is going to be, is Darnell Mooney going to be Justin Fields' favorite target? Is it going to be Allen Robinson? How is, the offense going to change with a rookie quarterback? Are they going to be more run heavy and rely more on David Montgomery? So that's obviously going to be something to look forward to, week 3. And then obviously, as you mentioned, Nagy's coming out saying that Dalton is the starter when healthy, but if Fields does struggle, maybe we can expect that. But if Fields is on, and performing like we think he can, obviously want to see how this offense changes.
This is too similar to the Dolphins situation last year where, I think the Bears are kind of on the outside looking in as far as the playoff race, but you just never know. Obviously, we're only 2 games in. Anything can happen. The Bears are a good defense. They have a nice offensive roster if Justin Fields can make it happen. And Andy Dalton's just not going to be that guy long term. It reminds me of Ryan Fitzpatrick last year, and then Tua waiting in the wings. Tua comes in and plays okay, but makes a couple mistakes. Fitzpatrick goes back in to be the starter. They pull Tua. They did that 4 or 5 times throughout the year, and Tua came out after the fact and just said, look, man, like I didn't really learn the playbook. It was hard to get a rhythm with the guys, blah, blah, blah. And we saw the Dolphins, unfortunately, just kind of fall short late at the end. I'm not saying the Bears are a guaranteed playoff team, but I think that they're going to at least be in the conversation, which they usually are. And if they commit to Fields now and he's not horrendous, they got to put him in there. The rest of these rookies are taking their bumps, and I think it's going to be important for Fields to do the same thing. I'm looking to go and acquire, if I can, David Montgomery, Allen Robinson, Darnell Mooney. Cole Kmet might even be on your waivers, if not for cheap, because I think this offense overall gets a huge bump moving forward, if not for this first week here. So keep an eye on the Bears there. All right, let's move on here. Texans and the Browns, 31-21. Browns get the victory, but I will say, if you're a Browns fan, this first half was a little bit sketch. The Texans played them pound for pound for about 3 quarters, and then the Browns finally took it away. So this game was a little bit closer than the score indicates. The Texans played well here. Nick Chubb, still a top running back. It looked kind of slow, 11 for 95 and a touchdown, a big long run at the end of the game to kind of help out fantasy managers there. Brandon Cooks continues to be solid, 9 receptions, 78 yards, and a touchdown. Tyrod Taylor was hurt. He's going to be out. We have rookie Davis Mills coming in from Stanford. He was the top recruit coming out of high school when he went to Stanford, and injuries just kind of hurt him in his college career overall as far as statistical upside. But he's got all the tools. I think he's going to be one of those 2-3 year guys to develop, but I think he's going to be a good quarterback for quite a while. And Davis Mills will get the start this week here. So Browns do get the win, but the Texans, man, the win over the Jags, I think a lot of people were like, yeah, it's the Jags. They lost to the Browns, but they played the Browns really well, and everybody expects the Browns to be a playoff team minimum. Texans are much better than anybody gave them credit for, including myself.
Yeah, myself included as well. I mean, our crazy calls and bold takes, I said that Brandon Cooks would be outside of, I think I might even said top 50. I mean, Tyrod Taylor was coming out and was the Tyrod Taylor of old. I mean, it was honestly quite impressive to see the Texans offense be, outpace I think anyone's expectations. I honestly wouldn't be surprised if they were outpacing their own expectations and everyone in that organization. Yes, week 1 was the Jags, but the Browns are a good team, a great team. They, in the first half, were, keeping up pace with the Browns, as the Chiefs were almost last week. So great signs for the Texans, and now obviously with Tyrod Taylor going down, kind of taking a step back there. We don't really know what to expect with Davis Mills. You kind of gave his history a little bit, but what's he going to look like? Similar situation to Justin Fields, obviously less touted. People were not paying attention to him. He wasn't expected to be the starter coming in. He lower draft capital, wasn't a high draft pick guy, so not many people have been paying attention. But what does this Texans offense look with Davis Mills? And what are the chances that Tyrod Taylor for the second year in a row gets benched for a rookie quarterback eventually? Third, you're right. Yep. So as much as I want that narrative to be true, I don't think Davis Mills has that in him. But again, I would not count out the Texans offense from surprising me yet again this year. For the Browns, obviously you have another team that's struggling with injuries. OBJ has missed the first 2 weeks. Finally is expected to be back for week 3. But now Jarvis Landry's dealing with injuries. And so a lot of the offense last week was their tight ends, Austin Hooper, Harrison Bryant, with OBJ out, Jarvis Landry leaving. And so really we haven't even seen what this Browns offense looks like outside of Nick Chubb. And Nick Chubb's going to be Nick Chubb, but what does this offense look like when OBJ's back? Is he going to be the OBJ of late or the OBJ of early? And of course, how does OBJ being back influence the tight ends, influence Kareem Hunt out of the backfield with his patch catching? I would love to see Kareem Hunt get more involved in the pass game, especially earlier on in the game, now that Jarvis Landry's out and they're a little short on receiving options. But, we didn't see that last week, and so that's not something that I would expect moving forward.
Jarvis Landry has never missed a game due to injury in his career. He is now on the IR with a sprained MCL, so he will be missing at least the next 3 games. Baker Mayfield also took a shot in this game to his left shoulder. It's not his throwing arm, so that's good news, but he's also a bit beat up. And it's been tough sledding here for the Browns. They should have beat the Chiefs. They get this win here, so they're playing well, but the team's just a bit beat up, and it's already early in the season. All right, let's move on here to the Colts and the Rams. The Rams squeaked this one out here. I thought the Rams should have taken it to the Colts quite a bit better than this. 27-24, Rams get the win, but a lot closer than I think Rams fans expected. Cooper Kupp, top wide receiver in fantasy football, top wide receiver in NFL football, 179-2 in this game. Stephon Diggs, 4 catches, 60 yards, and a touchdown. Still not getting that massive upside we saw last year, but I think that is eventually going to come. So far, we haven't seen the efficiency downfield from Josh Allen as we saw last year, but I think that is going to come. Keep an eye on Emmanuel Sanders as well. Could be a waiver wire pickup for you or a buy cheap there. So keep an eye on that. And then you have Michael Pittman for the Colts here, 8 catches, 123, and Carson Wentz sprains both ankles somehow. So keep an eye on Jacob Eason coming in. Not very excited about this offense. The running backs you can use, Jonathan Taylor, Nyheim Hines. Michael Pittman played well. T.Y. Hilton's still out. I might just be moving away from this offense if I can. We'll see what happens with Jacob Eason. But the Rams doing just fine here. Darrell Henderson goes down. Sonny Michel comes in, plays pretty well. But Robert Woods, outside of the top 40 wide receivers for the first 2 weeks, and obviously I skipped ahead there and I read Stephon Diggs, so disregard that obviously. But the Rams and the Colts, 27-24, Rams get the win.
Yeah, I mean, would love to have Diggs go over to the Colts. Maybe not with Jacob Eason, but with Wentz. They could use a nice wide receiver. But focusing on the Rams and the Colts game here, I mean, obviously with Wentz going down with 2 sprained ankles, which is, I think, the most Carson Wentz thing I've ever heard of.
What's the deal?
I don't know of anyone else that has ever sprained 2 ankles at the same time. I mean, maybe a dad in his softball league, but certainly not a professional athlete. So yeah, I mean, Jacob Eason comes in obviously real late, doesn't get to show us much within this game. But even from what we saw when Wentz was in the game, Colts offense didn't look great. They put up 24 points. You got to remember, obviously one of those touchdowns was a special teams touchdown. So really, this offense has struggled. Rams defense is obviously very good. Aaron Donald and Quentin Nelson going at it this week was fun to watch as well. But I'm a little bit concerned, in terms of the Colts offense overall. Jonathan Taylor goes 15 for 51. Not a great, average there. Didn't look fantastic, but now with Wentz out, I think severely limits this Colts offense. And so how does that impact, Jonathan Taylor's rush ability? As I think defenses can start to stack the box more, trying to focus and take away Jonathan Taylor and Nyheim Hines, forcing Jacob Eason to throw the ball to, par at best receivers in Pittman and Pascal, and who's the other one there? Paris Campbell, T.Y. Hilton when he comes back. That's what I would expect defenses to do now with this Colts offense with Wentz out, which I think really mostly impacts Jonathan Taylor and Nyheim Hines. Moving on to the Rams, Sonny Michel is, I think, going to be a beneficiary of an opportunity here. The Rams just have such a great offense right now, and having to focus on Woods and Kupp. Tyler Higbee was severely limited in this game, only 1 catch for 8 yards. So I think with so many weapons to focus on within this Rams offense, the running backs have always been efficient, right? Darrell Henderson, when he was healthy, Cam Akers was going to have a breakout year and did well last year. And so I think Sonny Michel is just going to be a beneficiary of a great opportunity on a great offense. If Darrell Henderson does miss time, if Sonny Michel's on your waiver pickup, he's worth at least a bench spot, and consider, if you have a Josh Jacobs who's questionable heading into week 3, or if you're the Darrell Henderson manager, obviously, as a nice handcuff there. But I think for a short-term start, Sonny Michel would be good. What I think is really interesting is going to be see kind of with Fields coming in, if he does well, he could win that starting job. I don't think Sony Michel's ever going to outright win this job from Darrell Henderson, no matter how well he does. But it is possible that Sony Michel balls out, does well, and now we're looking at more of a running back by committee in this Rams offense, and really not having a solid fantasy option in either Darrell Henderson or Sony Michel.
Yeah, it is possible. Two guys to look for buy lows, Robert Woods and Tyler Higbee. Each of them could have a big game at any point, and they each do have a nice floor. All eyes have been on Cooper Kupp, and rightfully so, but keep an eye on those guys as well. All right, let's move on to the Bills beating down on the Dolphins here, 35-0. This was brutal for the Dolphins. Tua goes out. Jacoby Brissett comes in, horrendous. The Bills ran him early, and it was over quickly. Again, I just previously skipped ahead on accidentally on my notes. So I've already talked about Josh Allen and Stephon Diggs. Second week in a row, Devin Singletary is the leading rusher in the committee. Zach Moss was not active in week 1. He was last week. I think this is a good opportunity to sell high on Devin Singletary because with both these guys in it, Singletary scored, but neither one of these guys is going to be a running back that you want to start. So if you could pair Singletary and somebody else to upgrade at one of your positions, I would absolutely do that. Josh Allen will get going. Stephon Diggs will get going. I mentioned Emmanuel Sanders there as well. Unfortunately, we're still going to have to wait it out with some of these other guys in this mix. All these wide receivers, we're going to get Will Fuller back next week. Jalen Waddle, hit or miss. Devontae Parker, hit or miss. Gabe Davis, hit or miss. So I'm kind of sticking away from those guys. You start your studs, Josh Allen, Stephon Diggs, and Myles Gaskin I'm still not even impressed with. So not a lot to talk about here from the Bills and the Dolphins. A huge win for the Bills coming back after that drubbing from the Steelers last week. But they're back on track here, and I think the Dolphins are in trouble if Tua can't go.
Yeah, absolutely. If Tua can't go, I don't want any piece. I actually don't have any pieces of this Miami offense in fantasy in my leagues, but even if I am a Miami Dolphin owner in any portion of this offense in fantasy, I'm looking to find any reason to sit them if Tua is not behind center come next week or any week moving forward. Anytime that you have a team that's relying on Jacoby Brissett to throw the ball 40-plus times in a game, I'm not too excited about that offense. Gaskin's not going to get the opportunities and the touches that he had last year and was able to just produce off of a lot of volume and opportunity. With the crowded wide receiver room, Waddle, you mentioned Fuller coming back, and Devontae Parker, it's going to be tough to pick who to start there. And I don't think any of them will be efficient with the opportunity that they have. Right. So the Bills offense, like you mentioned, looking forward to Allen and Diggs trying to come back to form of what they were last year. It'll have to come eventually. I mean, it almost has to. There's going to be a regression to the mean of what they can do in that offense. Zach Moss and Devin Singletary will not score this often as they did these first 2 weeks. Josh Allen, was known for his rushing ability, especially in the red zone last year. And so, like you mentioned, I'd be trying to move those guys if I could. If it's a package deal, try to capitalize on Zach Moss scoring twice in this week. Hope someone's looking at the final score rather than the actual opportunities. He only had 8 carries. It just happened that 2 of them went for touchdowns and we're in the red zone. So not too much new here from the Bills. Josh Allen, Stephon Diggs.
All right, let's move on to the Patriots and the Jets. Patriots get the win here, 25-6. 4 interceptions, unfortunately, for the Jets and Zach Wilson. Not a surprise there. Bill Belichick eats up rookie quarterbacks. Damian Harris getting the touches, 16 for 62, and a strong touchdown run there. Jets wide receivers having a rough day with those 4 picks. Corey Davis never got started. He was a big guy that we were all repping on that Sunday pre-show. That obviously backfired, unfortunately. Mac Jones, we mentioned it pre-show that I think right now he's in the conversation for Rookie of the Year. We're only 2 games in, but he's playing very well for what he's doing. He's playing conservative. He's playing Patriot ball, but he's not making mistakes. Solid there. Patriots take care of business, 25-6.
Yeah, absolutely. What to watch for moving forward? I mean, I think you hit the nail on the head with Mac Jones is playing this Patriot football. He's playing conservatively. This was what, any quarterback looks at as a pretty juicy matchup against the Jets defense. And Davis Mills, I'm reading the comments here. Mac Jones did nothing for fantasy, right? He played fantastic football for the NFL, led this Patriots offense and team to a very convincing win against a subpar Jets team. But for fantasy, we got nothing in what could be, outside of his next game against the Jets, one of his better matchups throughout the year. And so I'm a little bit hesitant to either pick up Mac Jones, trade for him, anything like that. If I have him on my roster, even in a super flex, I don't know if I'm comfortable with him as my second quarterback. So I think that's what I'm looking for from the Patriots side. With Mac Jones, I mean, he has been relying on James White. Damian Harris is obviously an integral part of that rush defense or rush offense as well. To what to look forward to in that Jets offense. Hopefully Zach Wilson gets those interceptions back down under control a little bit here. Does start to play almost a little bit more like Zach Wilson, a little bit conservative, but I do understand that he's in a position where he does have to press and push in order to try to get these Jets some wins. But as Jamison Crowder, still hasn't played yet, that's something that when he comes back, is he going to be able to be that PPR type of wide receiver 3, almost wide receiver 2 option just based off of pure volume that he's been in the past? Who's essentially going to be this target, favorite target for Zach Wilson with Jamison Crowder there. And we saw a little bit of Michael Carter start to break out a little bit. Obviously not a Rondale Moore type breakout, but starting to track his usage. If he's on your waiver wire, I'd suggest picking him up and stashing him at this point, because I think at this point his rush usage within this offense is only going to go up.
I drafted him late in one redraft league just to see, and then I dropped him after week 1, and I'll probably be looking to pick him back up and stash him at this point. But I'm not expecting big opportunity until Tevin Coleman is actually out of the picture. Ty Johnson's still in there as well. I'm not loving this Jets offense, but yes, you're right. I mean, running backs that eventually become hard to come by, so you might as well get a guy with upside, and that could be Michael Carter. All right, let's move on here to you and my personal game of the week here, the 49ers and Eagles. My Niners get a tight victory here, 17-11 over your Eagles. This was Eagles all first half. It was low scoring. Jalen Hurts had a bunch of big plays throwing the ball, a 91-yard reception to Quez Watkins that somehow wasn't a touchdown. They didn't end up scoring on that drive, but you also had a bunch of runs from him as well. And the 49ers just played Jimmy G football, which is frustrating as hell to watch because it's, 15 play drives all the time. But the Niners get the win here. Deebo Samuel, 6 catches, 93 yards. Again, 2 catches from Quez Watkins for 117, but one of those a 91-yard reception. Elijah Mitchell and Trey Sermon both injured in this game. JaMycal Hasty also injured in this game. They're trying out every running back possible on waivers right now. It's absurd. This running back room for the 4th year in a row is completely decimated already, and it's week 3. It literally is unbelievable. So we just had a comment here earlier. Should I keep Elijah Mitchell or Trey Sermon? And keep Elijah Mitchell. If you have to drop one of those guys, it'd be Trey Sermon. 1 carry, dude got blown up, fumbled, and got a concussion. Trey Sermon did. Elijah Mitchell got hurt, but he's been getting the work. Very, very tough here. Brandon Ayuk gets a little more play, but still not that bona fide starter. George Kittle is so good at blocking, they don't use him to catch passes, which is frustrating for fantasy football, but for NFL purposes, it's incredible that he's that kind of an option there. So, your guys are playing great. Miles Sanders played well. Kenny Gainwell, my man, got the 2-point conversion. He played really well again. And Devonta Smith, baller. So a lot of fantasy relevance on these squads, but also a lot of wait and see between the Eagles and the Niners.
Yeah, absolutely. And, that Eagles offense, I think the main piece being Jalen Hurts, especially for fantasy relevance. I mean, he's just always going to have that rushing floor that is going to keep you afloat, even in a game like this where the offense scores 1 touchdown and Jalen Hurts turns in a top quarterback performance in terms of fantasy relevance. This guy is just going to put up a floor of points that is going to not lose you a week, but has the insane upside of 2 rush touchdowns, 100 rush yards, and 200 more through the air. This is why I thought he could potentially be the QB1 of fantasy. Kyler Murray's putting that take to shame. I mean, that is just an absurd pace. But the Eagles' offense looks great with Jalen Hurts. I know it was something coming into the season that, hey, he's only played four games. What can we really expect? And we are only 2 weeks still into this season, 15 more to go. So still a lot of time here for Hurts to either progress and keep up this pace, or obviously fall off a cliff. I don't think it's going to be the latter. I do think it will be the former. We're starting to see, one of the things we talked about in that first what to watch for in week 1 was that Eagles backfield. I think it's looking less and less like a running back by committee than I was expecting it to be. Boston Scott is essentially nowhere to be found. Kenny Gainwell's involved, but not meaningfully in terms of Sanders' fantasy production. And so moving forward, if you want to have an Eagle on your squad because you're a Philadelphia Eagles fan like myself, Sanders is a great option. If you want to potentially try to move a stud RB that you have, pick up a Sanders and maybe like a wide receiver option that you're thin at wide receiver, that's something that I'd be comfortable doing.
Yeah, I've been fading Sanders for 3 years. I'm still not into it. I know he's going to break a random 90-yard touchdown eventually, and everyone's going to go crazy. But in my opinion, I'm just not really into that. As for Jalen Hurts, I do think he's the truth. I think he's only going to get better, and he's not quite Kyler Murray, but he is the next one in line, I think, after Lamar and Kyler as far as skill set and what he can do. All right, let's move on here to the Raiders and Steelers. Raiders get another big win here, 2 huge upsets. I know that Raiders fans are going to pretend like they were supposed to win both these games off the bat, but these are definitely upsets here with the Ravens and the Steelers going down 26-17. This time, Derek Carr, 382 and 2 touchdowns. Fantasy starter weekly. In single quarterback leagues, if you're looking to stream at this point, we're going to have bye weeks coming up in a couple weeks. Derek Carr is absolutely stream worthy. He's played 2 great defenses and demolished them. So he's pretty much defense proof at this point. So he's looking good there. Early candidate for MVP, in my opinion. Henry Ruggs catches a deep pass, 5 for 113 and a touchdown. Deontay Johnson, 9 for 105, has an injury at the end of the game, literally the last play. Hopefully he will be okay. It didn't seem to be long-term. Najee Harris, 15 total touches, 81 yards and a touchdown, but again, getting all of the work there. Juju, a nice game. Chase Claypool, not much until the end. And Josh Jacobs was inactive in this one. Peyton Barber gets the start. He and Kenyon Drake split touches. Darren Waller brought down to earth after 19 targets in week 1. Still a lot of questions here, but the Raiders look good. Derek Carr is playing very well, and the Raiders defense, for their credit, is playing very well. Also, Big Ben is old, and Deontay Johnson is going to get his work. Najee Harris should be okay volume-wise, but I don't think going to break out the way I wanted him to because of this offensive line. Big question mark here, but the Raiders impressing at 2-0.
Yeah, absolutely. And building off of your expectations of Najee not to break out like you would expect, I'm trying to move Najee if I have him in any leagues, trying to sell high off of a serviceable fantasy week this week against that Raiders defense. I wouldn't necessarily consider it selling high. It's not like he had a Derrick Henry type performance, but he's going to get the volume and someone's going to buy off of that volume and hope that breakout is still there. I just don't see it. I mean, the Steelers played a tough defense in the Bills week 1. Yes. But the Raiders defense is not something that is anything to write home about. I mean, look at Tyson Williams and what he did in week 1, his first NFL start against that Raiders defense. And I think was on pace for what Najee turned in. And so if you're looking for that Najee Harris, top 12, top 5 running back breakout, I don't think it's coming this year. I don't think it's coming in this offense. And I'd be looking for someone who does think that that's happening. If it's your Alabama Crimson Tide fan in your home league, sell Najee Harris to him. Someone's going to buy the opportunity and the volume that Najee Harris is going to get. But I think that it's just that. It's just opportunity and volume. And I'd be looking to sell off of a pretty good week this week against the subpar defense.
Yep. You're selling the opportunity, of course.
Yep.
All right. We'll move on here to the Saints and the Panthers. Panthers get the win 26-7. Saints demolish the Packers 2 weeks ago. Come back here, lay an egg against the Panthers. Panthers very impressive as well. Surprisingly, 2-0 to start in Sammy D there. Sam Darnold has never lost a game as the Panthers starting quarterback. Love that. 305-2 for Sammy D. Christian McCaffrey, 137 yards and a touchdown. DJ Moore, 8 catches, 79 yards, and a touchdown. Finally, Alvin Kamara, only 12 touches, 33 total yards here. He is a buy low candidate, absolutely. He's having the most opportunity share he's ever had in his career. He's literally having the most target share he's ever had in his career, and rushing share as well. So the numbers aren't there yet. I think the offense will continue to click and get better. They have not been able to. They had 8 assistant coaches. 8 were out in this game with COVID issues. That's not good for a locker room in preparation. So I think they bounce back. This is the time to get Alvin Kamara. I think you can do that. Najee Harris for Alvin Kamara straight up, I think would be a win. I would look to do that move. That's one, for example. How do you feel about the Panthers and the Saints in this one?
Yeah, I mean, you talked about the COVID and coaching issues that the Saints had coming in. Obviously, they are still learning to play with Jameis at quarterback. He was there last year, but never really played ever. And so still learning that system and how Jameis is running that system. But really what, you talked about, Kamara's still getting those opportunities, and they played what's proving to be a very good Carolina defense. They obviously played the Jets week 1. I think a lot of defenses are going to look against that offense. But this was a team that, remember, they were focusing on their defense in a draft of 2-3 years ago and went all defense, sold out on that defense. Their offense is going to run through Christian McCaffrey and, have been fortunate enough to focus on that defense in the draft. And so have really been looking to build up that defense. And it showed. They were able to keep this Saints offense in check. From week 1, the Saints offense didn't have a lot of yards. They obviously were very efficient with their scoring against the Packers, but it's going to come. The Saints offense is going to be passing. Alvin Kamara is going to get his opportunities, his rushes, his targets. And as they start to play, weaker defenses and, better matchups, they obviously have 2 games in division against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, which might be difficult for them and that defense, but they're gonna get theirs, and Kamara's gonna be fine moving forward. So a big opportunity to buy low on Kamara. I would absolutely trade him for Najee Harris straight up. Honestly, I'd swap Derrick Henry for him straight up too.
Wow.
In a PPR format.
Right. His career rush attempt percentage right now, it's 56% of the rush attempts through 2 games. His previous career high, 42 in 2019. That was with the Mark Ingram suspension. And his current target share in the offense is 26%. That's a quarter of the targets. His previous career high, 22 last year. So he is far exceeding both of his previous career highs with opportunity share. That's what we're looking for in fantasy football. We know Alvin Kamara is great. He will get the points and the scoring eventually. Go out and get the shares while you can. All right, Jordan, quick water break for you, my man. I'm going to give a shout out to the Jersey Jungle. We'll come back and bust out the rest of these recaps. Y'all know how we do this. Jersey Jungle on Instagram, at the Jersey Jungle. Use the promo code TCK to receive 10% off of 1 or 2 jerseys, 15% off of 3 jerseys. This week behind me, I've got my man Julio Jones. I still have the Falcons throwback. At this point, it's a retro. I don't have a Titans one yet, but I will eventually. Should have had an extra touchdown. We'll get to him in just a little bit. But great jerseys, authentic, stitch and twill every sport. Jordan played college baseball. I played a little college baseball. We're baseball nerds, basketball fans, hockey fans as well. Football, of course. They have all sports that you're looking for. Once again, the Jersey Jungle on Instagram. DM them. My man Trenta will take care of you. Use the promo code TCK to get 10% off of 1 or 2 jerseys, 15% off of 3 jerseys. These are already marked down at 50% off of what you're used to paying them. Go check it out, the Jersey Jungle on Instagram. All right, let's move on here. We are now on to the Broncos and the Jaguars. Broncos get the win 23-13. We were expecting some really nasty weather. Cleared up right before game time, and the weather, to my knowledge, didn't affect the game too much here as far as extra running or slippery ball or anything like that, which is great news. Broncos get the big win here. Teddy Bridgewater, 328 and 2 touchdowns. Cortland Sutton had a week one. It was all Jerry Jeudy. Then he got hurt and they kind of had a scramble at the end there. 9 catches, 159 yards, showing that he's the alpha wide receiver in Denver. You love to see that. Marvin Jones, we told you this early in the summer, or I should say late in the summer, but early draft season and then down the stretch there, we had our good friends James and Phil on from the Believe in Jags podcast. They were telling us, look, they're Jags insiders. They were telling us Marvin Jones is actually the number one. Fantasy football wants Laviska Shenault and DJ Chark to be the number one. In NFL terms, it's the veteran. It's Marvin Jones. We saw that in a big way. 6 catches, 55 yards, and a nice deep touchdown from Trevor Lawrence there. James Robinson, still not much going on. Melvin Gordon, Javonte Williams continue to split work. Tim Patrick got a touchdown. KJ Hamler didn't do much, but again, 2 weeks ago, dropped a 50-plus yard bomb. Those guys are kind of hit and miss. How do you feel about the Broncos and Jags?
Yeah, looking at the Broncos offense, I mean, going back to week 1, Jerry Jeudy had 7 of 34 targets, seemed to be obviously that alpha before getting hurt, and was that guy. Honestly, was looking at Cortland Sutton and saying, what can we expect of Cortland Sutton if Jerry Jeudy is going to produce at this pace? Jerry Jeudy goes down. Cortland Sutton now ends up with 12 of 34, 35 targets this week. Teddy Bridgewater is trusting his guys, right? It's going to be Jerry Jeudy if he comes back, when he comes back. But in the meantime, Cortland Sutton is going to be that guy for the Broncos offense. You mentioned that Melvin Gordon and Javonte Williams are splitting carries. As long as that continues, neither one of them is going to be, that guy for you in fantasy. Teddy Bridgewater is obviously a serviceable NFL quarterback in a pinch in fantasy in the right matchup. Could absolutely start Teddy Bridgewater and feel comfortable there. But moving forward, I mean, Cortland Sutton has to be. I know it's only 1 week, but you look back to his previous career. I mean, prior to the ACL tear, obviously, was that guy for the Broncos as well. Had a great year. Obviously, unfortunate with the injury, but it's not like this is a rookie wide receiver where we really haven't ever seen it before. But we have seen it with Cortland Sutton, so I'm okay with taking this 1 week sample size so far with Teddy Bridgewater and projecting out, saying he's going to be that guy for the Denver Broncos offense moving forward. So start your Cortland Sutton. Trade for him if you want. It's probably going to be difficult coming off of this week's performance, but maybe looking forward, trying to find that matchup where he does struggle and buy low. If it is, soon in this schedule, if he does, take a misstep or falter in an upcoming game here, trying to buy low after that 1 week of a fantasy manager starting to panic with a one misstep. Looking at the Jaguar side of the ball here, I mean, I wanted it to be Laviska Shenault. Obviously, it doesn't seem to be coming out that way. It is Marvin Jones getting most of this passing work. I'm really discouraged from the Jacksonville backfield with Carlos Hyde being used way more than I think he should be. James Robinson relied last year on a lot of volume to get to that fantasy production that he's just not getting this year in Urban Meyer's offense.
Right. And again, Marvin Jones is that number one there, not Laviska Shenault. A couple of drops as well. So keep an eye on Marvin Jones. And if you can, maybe get off of the Laviska hype train if you're able to. And DJ Chark not able to make the most of his opportunities just yet as well. Next up, the Vikings and the Cardinals. In my opinion, the most exciting morning matchup here in this one. 34-33. The Vikings get the win on a missed field goal from the Cardinals. Other way around. Cardinals get the win on a missed field goal by the Vikings. 34-33. Cardinals get the win. Kyler Murray, 403. Ram went in as well. Dalvin Cook, 131 yards. Did get injured 2 or 3 times in this game. It was looking scary a few times. And dude, this guy just gives me anxiety watching him play. It's like all jubilation, and then just like my heart sinks when he goes down.
He does this every year. He comes out of games is like, I'm hurt. You think he's out for, you're like, where's Dalvin Cook? What is this? And then he's like, oh no, I'm back in.
man, I'm glad he's healthy, but it's tough to watch. Adam Thielen scores again. Surprise, surprise. We knew coming in, man. I mean, 14 touchdowns last year seemed unbelievable. Well, he's got 3 through two games. So the math so far is in his side. Justin Jefferson's going to be just fine moving forward as well. Rondale Moore, we've talked about quite a bit. 7 catches, 114, and a touchdown on their side. Nuke Hopkins is Nuke Hopkins. So Chase Edmonds still getting the work. James Conner getting some work as well. Chase Edmonds blowing them out with efficiencies. I'm not thrilled on that running back core. I just have no shares. I'm not interested personally, but Kyler Murray is the man.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you say that you're not interested in that backfield. I think the one thing that I would be willing to do is the price that you have to pay to get Chase Edmonds right now is extremely low. I mean, he hasn't really, I don't think, scored yet this season. And it's been the Kyler Murray show there in Arizona. There's obviously an opportunity for Chase Edmonds to start to take over that backfield a little bit more. You mentioned he's been more efficient than James Conner. I think has had a little bit more opportunities over the course of 2 weeks as well. And so in the event that Chase Edmonds does start to chip away at that backfield share, does start to find the end zone a little bit more in this efficient offense that is going to be, I mean, I'd be shocked if they don't put up 20 points in a game. He's going to have end zone opportunities, red zone opportunities. I know James Conner is supposed to be that goal line back, but I think Chase Edmonds can start to chip away at that role. And the price that you have to pay for him right now is, it's not like you're buying high on Chase Edmonds. You're either getting a fair price or you're buying low of a foundation that he's on right now that could, start to increase his performance for fantasy. DeAndre Hopkins, as you mentioned, DeAndre Hopkins, you were a little bit upset, or not upset, but disappointed with this performance in that he started out with basically his finishing stat line. Didn't do much there at the end with Rondale Moore breaking out and basically taking over late in this game. But Arizona Cardinals' offense is nothing to be worried about. I'd be happy acquiring any piece of this offense at cost or value for Chase Edmonds. On the Vikings side, I mean, Kirk Cousins is a very serviceable fantasy quarterback. I mean, he's, I think, got weapons around him to use. The defenses are focusing on Dalvin Cook in the running game. You have both Adam Thielen and Justin Jefferson to keep up with. KJ Osborne now starting to break out a little bit in his second year. You just have a lot of options here in the Vikings offense that, as you move forward, keeping an eye on KJ Osborne and what he starts to, integrate himself within this offense and how that impacts potentially Adam Thielen or Justin Jefferson.
Vikings are looking good. Cardinals look very good as well. The Vikings will get it clicking, man, but this is 2 years in a row that they've started slow. Crushing loss in overtime to the Bengals, and then a last-second loss as well here to the Cardinals. They're literally 2 plays away from being 2-0. They're 0-2. That's tough. Let's move on to the Buccaneers and the Falcons. Buccaneers, big win, 48-25. No surprise here. Brady, 276 and 5 touchdowns. Gronk and Evans get 2 each. Calvin Ridley and Kyle Pitts lead the receiving core for the Falcons. Ridley got a touchdown here. It was actually Cordero Patterson, not Mike Davis, getting the work. Cordero Patterson runs in a touchdown. He's dual eligible at wide receiver and running back in most formats, so pick him up off waivers as well. The Bucs are the Bucs. I think everyone's still kind of nervous about the Falcons. Nothing much has changed. I think Antonio Brown had a down week this week after blowing up in week 1. I think he's going to be just fine next week. Chris Godwin seems to be the consistent piece there for the Buccaneers. Not much has changed from week 1 here for the Bucs and the Falcons.
Nope, not much at all. And I think basically what you're looking at with the Bucs wide receiving core is just what you mentioned. Godwin's probably going to be the most consistent out of these 3 in terms of week-to-week production for your fantasy team. He's going to be a reliable start. Probably not going to hurt you like Antonio Brown did this week. He'll be consistent. Where the touchdowns go is anyone's guess. Brady clearly loves to target Gronkowski towards the end zone and in the red zone, and so you can kind of expect that. Obviously Gronk is a great fantasy option at the tight end position so far this year, and I would expect him to be moving forward because of that rapport that he has with Brady. But is it going to be Evans? Is it going to be Antonio Brown in terms of who's that second wide receiver on a week-to-week basis that Brady's throwing the ball to, that breaks that one long touchdown or has the how many targets did Antonio Brown get week 1? Like 12. But obviously this week disappoints. So
I'm not really worried if I have Evans or AB. You just have to understand that you're basically going to have a week winning week or maybe a dud. And that's the definition of boom or bust. But I just think Evans is completely touchdown reliant at this point, and Antonio Brown's going to be volume dependent, which is tough. So Godwin's the guy I want. Gronk is great for tight end, but why not just have Tom Brady? And that's kind of what I put the math together in my mind. So I ended up drafting him in the middle rounds as one of the last quarterbacks off the board in draft season, because I just figured, like, I don't want the headache of who to start. I just want the guy throwing him the ball. So far, that's Tom Brady. Let's move on to the Cowboys and the Chargers here. Cowboys get a win, 20-17. Chargers weekly have opportunities to win these games, and they don't. The Cowboys escape, in my opinion, with the victory over Jay Herbs. Keenan Allen and Mike Williams, big games once again. Austin Eckler, 105 total yards and a touchdown. 9 targets in this game. He's going to be just fine. He had none in week 1. He's going to be just fine. CeeDee Lamb, 8 catches, 81 yards. Amari Cooper gets banged up in this one. Zeke scores. Pollard, 13 carries, 109 and a touchdown as well. This is not a committee, in my opinion, but Tony Pollard looks awesome. Every beat reporter out of Dallas is basically saying there is no surprise here with Tony Pollard. They know he's very talented. If Zeke were to ever go down, Pollard would obviously be the starter, but it is still Zeke's squad. They're just trying to kind of elongate his season with the extra game, not burn him out, which they've done in seasons past. So this is surprising to fantasy because we didn't see it coming, but this is very much a strategy for the long game for the Cowboys. So it's frustrating, but I think Zeke is only going to get better as the season goes on, assuming he stays healthy. But Tony Pollard should absolutely be on your rosters.
Yeah, you should absolutely be on your rosters, because as long as Dallas is employing this strategy of trying to limit Zeke's touches and involve Tony Pollard in this offense, he's going to give you a fantasy relevant week. And whether it's in a pinch or, maybe you were the Josh Jacobs, Darrell Henderson owner, and now you're looking at potentially needing at least most likely one of those two guys, a spot start for them. Tony Pollard could be that option. We're still early on in the season. They're going to be involving him in the offense to spare Zeke, and he could have games like this in a game where the Cowboys offense, in terms of what our expectations were for this game, I think a lot of people were expecting a shootout. I think it was one of the largest over-unders of the week, ends up only putting up 37 total points in the week, but Pollard still turned in a great fantasy week this week. And so Dallas offense is extremely prolific. It's going to have the opportunities in the end zone. They're going to score a lot. And as long as Tony Pollard is on the field and getting opportunities, he's easily someone that I'd be comfortable starting as a running back 2 or a flex option.
Absolutely. And he's probably he may be a waiver pickup. Last I checked, he was available in only 51% of leagues. After this next week, when he plays very well, he's going to get picked up by all the Zeke owners. So go try to beat him there. Alexander Madison, of course, should be out there. Our annual handcuffs should be rostered moving forward here, but don't drop somebody useful to pick them up. It's just if you move someone to IR or something and you can pick somebody else up, use that bench spot. Let's move on to the Titans and the Seahawks. This one was back and forth all game long as well. Titans get a huge win here. The Seahawks were blowing them out early. Derrick Henry took over the second half in the fourth quarter especially, and overtime did his thing. Monstrous run after monstrous run. Julio Jones had a touchdown negated by kind of stepping on the line. If you saw the pictures or the video or whatever from his heel, I watched it live. I thought it was a touchdown, but I don't make the rules. Titans get the win in overtime, 33-30 over the Seahawks. Derrick Henry, 35 carries, 182 yards, and 3 touchdowns, most of that coming in the fourth quarter and overtime. Tyler Lockett, once again, absolutely phenomenal. 8 catches, 178, and a long touchdown, per usual. Julio Jones, 6 catches, 128 yards. I was telling people in the Sunday stream, this might be the breakout for Julio. It took him a week. Tannehill was out with COVID. Julio came in new to the team. A.J. Brown's still a guy, run first, blah, blah, blah. Took him a couple weeks. I think Julio's the truth. 4 drops for A.J. Brown. He's going to rectify that. Go get A.J. Brown at a low cost right now while you can. Carson, 2 touchdowns. Chris Carson out of the backfield. And DK Metcalf got a bit beat up at the end of the game, but he is also getting the same amount of opportunity down the field, but Lockett and Wilson are just on another level with their chemistry there. So how do you feel about the Titans and the Seahawks here?
I mean, I feel great about the Seahawks and Tyler Lockett. I was drafting him in the 5th round, 4th round, pretty much of most of the mocks that we did. If I didn't, it was because I wanted to give a little variety and not keep taking him. It was just such a value. Everyone looked at what happened last year with Tyler Lockett, looked at the hot start he had the first half. He had 3 of the games were like, 40 some odd % of his total fantasy points of the whole year. I mean, it was ridiculous. But what was the issue is that a lot of people looked at what happened in the second half and how that potentially hurt their, fantasy teams, or would have if Lockett was on their team. And I think if you had just flipped that year and you look at Lockett kind of starting slow, finish strong, and now has these 2 hot games to start, no one's worried about Tyler Lockett and the prospects of him rest of the year. If you have a Tyler Lockett manager in your league that's looking to move and sell high on Tyler Lockett based off of these 2 first weeks, is expecting Tyler Lockett to have a similar year to last year where he drops off that cliff, I don't think it happens this year. Outside of last year, Tyler Lockett was a pretty consistent wide receiving option for Russell Wilson and the Seahawks. It was one year where he still had all the targets. He had all the opportunities that he was getting in the first half of that year. He had them still in the second half of the year. Ball just didn't fall his way. That's going to happen. But I don't think that that's something that we can project again to say, oh, Tyler Lockett's going to fall off in the second half of this year or coming up here, after these 2 hot weeks. I don't think it's going to happen. If there's someone who's looking to, if this is a term, sell Tyler Lockett high at a discount, I'd take it, right? What I mean by that is someone who's looking to move Tyler Lockett at a pretty high cost because of these 2 hot weeks, but is willing to maybe not sell as high as you would think because they're expecting that drop off.
I agree. And again, if you're looking at, sell high, buy low, or kind of generic terms, but you can sell a guy high that is still a great player because you're going to get more value from him. You might be able to flip Tyler Lockett and another piece for a Tyreek Hill this week because of the down week from Tyreek Hill. I mean, look, we see ridiculous trades. I'm in a ton of leagues. We commission a bunch of leagues. I see all the trades happen. You'd be shocked at what actually goes down. And I know people post on Twitter like, this just happened in my league. And everyone's like, what the hell? That would never happen in my league. Give it a shot. See what happens. The worst that's going to happen is they say no. All right, let's move on here. We got 2 games left. Sunday Night Football. Great matchup here with the Chiefs and the Ravens. The Ravens, they got ousted by the Raiders on Monday Night Football to start the season. They should have won that game. The Raiders came back and beat them late. The Chiefs should have won this game. The Ravens come back late, beat them 36-35. Incredible performance from Lamar Jackson on the ground. Not so impressive in the air, but nonetheless, he gets it done. 107 rushing yards and 2 touchdowns for Lamar Jackson. Tyson Williams, he is 3rd in the NFL right now in broken tackles. He is playing very, very well behind Christian McCaffrey and Miles Sanders. So he is the guy, but he's not getting the passing work. He's getting the targets, but it's not developing much because their offense isn't set up like that with the screen game or whatever. So Tyson Williams is somebody I'm actually looking to move off of and upgrade. If you can, Hollywood Brown, 6 for 113 and a touchdown, a broken play for Lamar over the middle was a big chunk of that, but he looks great. Sammy Watkins looks great as well. Keep an eye on Rashad Bateman coming back in a couple of weeks as well. Kelsey, 7 for 109 and a touchdown, ho-hum. They played 2 high safeties and an extra cornerback on Tyreek Hill, took him out of the game. Very impressive move. CEH still not involved. I'm worried about him. Mahomes is Mahomes, though. So I'm not really super tripping on these players, but Tyson Williams is the guy I want to move. Hollywood Brown is the guy I would love to move. I would like to try to sell up and acquire, if you can, with Tyler Lockett and a piece for Tyreek Hill, potentially. And just keep an eye on Rashad Bateman. I think you should pick him up and put him on your IR.
Yeah, absolutely. I think if you have that IR slot available, I hope no one in my work league is listening and watching this because I'm pretty high up or pretty down low in that waiver priority, so might be outing myself here. But Rashad Bateman is going to be an integral part of this passing offense, and when he comes back, we don't know what that's going to look like in terms of what target share he's going to get, what percentage of this passing offense he's going to get. We know it's a small pie. Which is why I think you're willing to move on from Marquise Brown. I would be willing to move on from Mark Andrews for the right price. Obviously, it's hard to come by a good tight end, but if you could sell Mark Andrews for a Tyler Higbee plus, a Logan Thomas plus, a Robert Tonyan plus, that's something that I'd be willing to do because of how, such a small slice of the pie that Mark Andrews and the rest of this passing offense in Baltimore has had. But looking at the Chiefs offense, I mean, Mahomes and Tyreek are going to be fine. Kelsey is absolutely Kelsey. Wouldn't be willing to move on from him. But the running backs you mentioned, I mean, Clyde Edwards-Helaire seems to just not be looking good. I mean, this Chiefs offense does not go through the run game. Mahomes was, beating the drum for Clyde Edwards-Helaire coming out of college. And even this offseason was saying we got to involve him more in the pass offense. And it just hasn't happened. It's been the same for the Chiefs, where it is Tyreek, it is Travis Kelce, it is occasionally your McCole Hardman, occasionally a play from Byron Pringle. But for the most part,
Robinson.
Yep, absolutely. But for the most part, I mean, your fantasy options are going to be Mahomes, Tyreek, and Kelce from the Chiefs offense.
Yeah, and you might be able to go – it might be tough because he hasn't scored yet, but next week, if Mark Andrews scores a touchdown, regardless of his line, and TJ Hawkinson doesn't somehow, you might be able to go like Andrews plus to get Hawkinson, which I would do that as well. All right, let's move on to our final game here. It is the Monday night thriller. Packers get the win, the bounce-back win, the relax game here for Aaron Rodgers after they get demolished in week 1 by the Saints. They beat up on the Lions 35-17, and the Lions came out swinging first. They scored first. They scored second. They led at halftime, and then the defense finally stepped up. Aaron Rodgers took over after that. 4 touchdowns from my man Aaron Jones. He's the first Green Bay running back in history with 3+ receiving touchdowns and a rushing touchdown in one single game. Aaron Rodgers, 255 and 4. I kept saying the entire week he was going to have 400 passing yards and 4 touchdowns. I was off on the yardage because he just didn't need it. But there was about 5 deep bombs that were all 40 yards, air yards, to MVS mostly, Alan Lazard as well, that just didn't come up with grabs. If those were caught, he would have had 400 yards easy in this game and those 4 touchdowns, maybe even more. Adams, 8 for 121, yet to score a touchdown on the year, but those are coming absolutely. Robert Tonyan, 352 and a touchdown. For the Lions side, DeAndre Swift, 8 for 37 on the ground, 4 for 41 through the air, 2 of those catches coming in garbage time. Jamal Williams in his revenge game back to the Packers, 7 carries, 25 yards, 3 catches, 12 yards. Neither one of them scored. Hawkinson, 8 for 66 and 1. Quintez Cephas, I started in the Monday night FanDuel. I actually put him in my lineup, was pretty stoked. He caught that first touchdown, 4 for 63 and 1 there. So how do we feel about the Packers? Everything's good. We're chilling. I mean, back to business with the Packers. And with the Lions, they're surprising, man. I think that everybody's a fantasy option here, including Goff in Superflex leagues.
Yeah, especially in a Superflex, Goff is relevant in the right matchup. I mean, either a team that is going to have a lot of garbage time for Goff, like in the San Francisco matchup, or in a matchup where the defense just is not great and Goff can have a day. Someone I would even be looking to play in a 1-quarterback league, depending on who my other options are. Hawkinson, you're going to start. Outside of that, I mean, DFS, you could play a Quintez Cephas, a Tyrell Williams when he comes back. But for the most part, in terms of redraft, I'm not too excited about any of the wide receivers for Detroit. I think your running back options in Detroit are fine. Green Bay didn't give up much yardage to the Saints. Yes, they gave up a lot of touchdowns, but we're pretty solid in terms of yardage against the Saints. So not too worried about a down week here for the Detroit running backs. For the Green Bay Packers, yes, business as usual. Everyone is what you are expecting them to be. Lazard and MVS are those deep threats. Maybe you catch a bomb touchdown here or there, but for the most part, it's going to be your Aaron Jones, Aaron Rodgers, Devontae Adams, Robert Tonyan. The one guy I do want to call out is A.J. Dillon. I think coming into this year, everyone expected him to be more involved in this offense. And at this point now, I view him as purely a handcuff for Aaron Jones. He has, even in a blowout win here at the end, was not really involved in this offense. Not something that, I'm excited about. I drafted him in a couple leagues as a value plus handcuff where I thought he'd be involved, almost like what Tony Pollard is now, where he's involved in the offense and has that huge upside if Zeke were to get hurt. Kind of how I had expected A.J. Dillon to be this year, involved with that huge upside if Aaron Jones got hurt. I think now we have to back down and look at A.J. Dillon specifically as just a handcuff option.
That's a good call. Everyone expected him to be Jamal Williams. That's just not his skill set there. All right, y'all. That's a little bit longer. Again, these recap episodes are longer this time of year because we don't have bye weeks yet. In the next couple of weeks, we're going to start having 4 teams, 6 teams on bye. That will cut down these episodes significantly. But for now, we're just about over an hour. Always appreciate Jordan's time. That was the week 2 recaps and what to watch for in week 3. Coming up next tomorrow, stick around for Buck and Bob. Going with the ECR versus TCK. They're going to give you some fades and some buys in and outside the top 12 and 24 at respective positions. Of course, they're also going to give you some QB and tight end streamers, and then Buck's player to target in a trade for the week. Last week, his player was Tyler Lockett. That one worked out, so stick around for it. They're also going to preview the Thursday night game between the Panthers and the Texans. This episode and all episodes of the Candlestick Kids have been brought to you by BetOnline and Play Action Pools. You hear it in the intro. Make sure you go use those promo codes and get involved in anything to do with your BetOnlines over the weekend with your player props. And you can also still get involved with some NFL pick'ems and survivor pools as well with Play Action Pools. Want to give a shout out to our sponsors. Once again, Bomb Banana Hot Sauce and the Jersey Jungle. Always a pleasure to work with my man, Jordan Della Valle. Follow him on Twitter, J Della Valle, with an E, not a Y, and 7, J Della Valle 7. And my name is Sky Guasco. You can find me on Twitter as well. Make sure to give some love to Facebook, YouTube, Periscope, and Twitch for the fantasy focused community and the Candlestick Kids Fantasy Focus podcast. Anywhere you listen to the Believe podcast networks, leave us a 5-star rating and review. And of course, make sure you check us out Sunday morning, 10 to 1 o'clock Eastern, 7 a.m. to 10 a.m. Western time, to get in with your last minute start sit shows, and we'll get to you. Jordan, I did promise that we would have 2 comments before we get out of here. I want to get to those quickly, and then we will bounce. Swansea has a trade issue. I'll read it off here, and I'll get your answer. Would you accept this trade if you were team 2? Team 1 gets Alvin Kamara, Kyle Pitts, Chase Claypool, and Sterling Shepard. This is a big trade. Kamara, Pitts, Claypool, Shepard. Team 2 gets Calvin Ridley, Joe Mixon, and TJ Hawkinson. Ridley, Mixon, Hawkinson. Or is that too bad of a trade? What do you guys think? So again, you're trading Kamara, Pitts, Claypool, and Shepard. You're getting Ridley, Mixon, and Hawkinson. Would you do this trade?
I want the Ridley, Mixon, Hawkinson side of this trade.
I do too.
I think it doesn't depend on format for me, but especially if or even if you're in a PPR format, Hawkinson is a fantastic tight end option in that PPR format. He is, I think, Goff's main receiving option here, including Jamal Williams or DeAndre Swift. Hawkinson's that main target. He's going to have that steady opportunity week in and week out, especially towards the end zone. And I think he's, even at this point, behind still Kelsey and Waller. But after that, I mean, you mentioned Kittle staying in to be that blocking guy for the 49ers right now. Hawkinson might be that 3 from here on out. And so that positional advantage that Hawkinson's going to provide you, Pitts has not broken out yet, has not, proven to be that guy. And so I want the Hawkinson side there. Kamara, Joe Mixon, obviously Kamara's in a struggling Saints offense, but, we'll figure it out. I do think Kamara's the better option the rest of the season, but Joe Mixon has that Najee Harris type volume and opportunity almost in that Bengals offense. Samaje Perine never going to threaten that, and so I want the Mixon side. And Calvin Ridley's going to be fine in that Atlanta offense as well. They're struggling as of late, but he's going to be he's that primary option for Matt Ryan and the Falcons. So I want that side of the trade for sure.
Couldn't say it better myself. Swansea, we are going to go with your trade. Go get Ridley, Mixon, and Hawkinson. We are with you on that one. And also, of course, come back to us on Sunday morning for all your start sits. One more here, Jordan, and we'll get out of here. This is from JSB 72812. Someone in my 10-team league dropped Javonte Williams. How much fab would you guys spend out of 100? So what percentage of fab would you drop on Javonte Williams? Look, splitting the work 50-50 so far with Melvin Gordon. Melvin Gordon got the 70-yard touchdown last week, but that could have easily been Javonte Williams if you were in on that play. I'm a big Javonte Williams guy, have been all off season. Bobby's been a Melvin Gordon guy. Love this offense in general. It's cooking with Teddy B. I don't want to go crazy on this because he's not the starter yet, but I think he will be the Jonathan Taylor of this year. I really believe that, but it might take another 6 weeks. I'm good with like 30% on this one here, at least maybe.
I was thinking a third of whatever I have remaining.
There you go. Well, he's got 100, so he's out of 100, so about 30, 33, yeah.
Yeah, 30, 33, and I think especially if the reason why I would ever be, willing to go above that 33 is what my running back situation looks like. If I have a Chubb mix-in, maybe I don't need to spend up for a Javonte Williams. But if I'm someone who has, a struggling running back room, not looking too great, I had Mike Davis as my RB2. Now I might be willing to spend a little bit more for that, upside of Javonte Williams, supplanting Mike Davis in my roster as my RB2.
Yeah, and again, with the 10-team league, I would hope that your roster is doing pretty well anyway. But if you had like a Mostert, a Mike Davis, maybe a Chase Edmonds, a Myles Gaskin, even Najee Harris, Saquon Barkley. I mean, there's a lot of running backs who have not clicked yet. If you have 2 or 3 of those guys, even in a 10-team league, the rest of your roster could be stacked, but maybe not at running back. This would be a guy I want. Don't break the bank too early on a backup, but I do think a guy like Javonte Williams is playing now and has upside later. So I would go ahead and go about 30 to 35. We'll call it dollars, but 30 to 35% here out of 100. JSB, catch us on Sunday morning, and we'll have your start sits ready for you. All right, y'all, we're going to get out of here. Ran in overtime today. Stick around tomorrow. Buck and Bob coming at you with another episode of the Candlestick Kids Fantasy Football Podcast. This is 454 in the books from my man, Jordan Della Valle. I'm your host, Sky Guasco. We'll catch you next time. We are out of here.